Good evening. You're watching ARIRANG News at 8. It's Wednesday, January 29th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I am Yoo Ji-hye. Now, on this eve of the start of the Lunar New Year holiday, many Koreans have begun making their ways to their hometowns. Bus terminals and train stations are crowded with those heading out to spend their time with their families. Major expressways are currently moving along. It will currently take a little more than 4 hours to travel by car from Seoul to Busan in the south of the country. However, the traffic is expected to reach its peak Thursday morning when more than 40% of all holiday travelers will be leaving for their destinations. That stretch from Seoul to Busan will then take up to 8 hours. According to transportation authorities, over 27 million people will travel around the country during the 4-day-long holiday. And while millions of Koreans will be hitting the roads this Lunar New Year holiday, some 40,000 people in the country will be taking to the skies. So where are they all headed? Our Connie Lee has more on the hottest travel destinations.
The long holiday is nearly here in Korea, and while most are staying close to their homes and in the country, there are some that are taking advantage of the days off on Thursday and Friday to make a trip abroad.
Korean companies are giving out an average of 4.1 days of vacation for this Lunar New Year, slightly more than last year's 3.5 days.
According to 7 of the top travel agencies in Korea, about 40,000 people will be making a trek across the seas for this Lunar New Year holiday. So where are they going? Well, Hong Kong appears to be the top destination.
Last year, the Philippines and Thailand were the hottest destinations during the Lunar New Year. But this year, those places aren't even in the top 5. This holiday, many families booked tickets to Hong Kong for the winter festivities and for the shopping.
Officials say Koreans are shying away from the Philippines because the country is recovering from last year's typhoon, and Thailand because of the ongoing political protests there. So travelers chose destinations a little closer to home this time, with the second and third popular places being Japan and Taiwan.
We're also seeing the trend of more people traveling on their own instead of going with tour packages. This comes from the influence of popular reality TV shows where celebrities find their ways around foreign countries.
TV programs like Grandpas Over Flowers and Sisters Over Flowers, which chronicle the journeys of actors and actresses in different countries, have become so popular, in fact, that some Koreans are opting to visit the very same places. For the next long holiday coming up in the month of May, officials say Korean travelers are eyeing countries like Turkey and Croatia, with plane tickets already being fully booked for then. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
And with millions marching to their hometowns during the Lunar New Year holiday, the nation is on high alert as a bird flu outbreak gripping this nation is showing no sign of letting up. The authorities say efforts to contain the spread over the next few days will be crucial. Our Kwon So-hwa reports.
The battle against bird flu will continue over the Lunar New Year holiday, with disease prevention authorities tightening measures to prevent the virus spreading any further. Government employees, local self-governing bodies, the military and police will be on 24-hour standby over the 4-day holiday. Concerns are rising that with an estimated 30 million people on the move over the holiday period, the flu could spread to even more regions. The government has therefore ordered the installation of sterilization facilities and interchanges on highways across the nation. The public is also being asked to refrain from visiting poultry farms and migratory bird habitats and to take extra care not to step on animal droppings. The Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs said the virus can be contained if everyone pulls together.
I ask for your active cooperation in preventive measures during trips to your hometowns this Lunar New Year holiday, even if it's inconvenient.
The minister also said stock breeding farms should sterilize their facilities and surrounding areas every day and immediately report any suspected bird flu outbreaks to the Agriculture Ministry. There are now fears the virus has even spread to the southeastern part of the nation in Gyeongsang-Namdo province. The Agriculture Ministry said on Wednesday that a suspected case at a chicken farm in the city of Miryang was reported Tuesday night. Officials say around 70 chickens were found dead at the farm. New suspected cases also popped up in several farms in west of the country, and the virus was confirmed in Korea's central Chungcheongbuk-do province and another further south in Chungcheongnam-do province on Tuesday. Meanwhile, farms that have been devastated by the mass culling of their ducks and chickens will receive government compensation before the end of the week. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
In a show of solidarity against Japan for its ongoing denials of wartime atrocities, Korea's top diplomat met with victims of Tokyo's sexual slavery on Wednesday. He vowed to do any and all he can to get them a much-deserved apology from Japan. Hwang Sung-hee has more.
Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se on Wednesday paid a surprise visit to the House of Sharing, home to a handful of victims of the Japanese military's sexual slavery. Meeting with 6 so-called comfort women, Yoon promised that the Korean government would do all it can to help heal their wounds.
Japanese political leaders have recently said and done things to cause you even greater pain. The Korean government will put our utmost efforts to recover your honor.
The most elderly victims, who have been fighting all their lives for an official apology from the Japanese government, appealed for the minister's help in getting them much-deserved compensation.
I want to receive an apology from Japan before I die, but I think we'll die before that day comes. Please help us recover our honor.
An estimated 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were used as sex slaves by the Japanese army in the early 20th century, and many are still waiting for an apology from Tokyo. Yoon's visit comes amid worsening relations between Seoul and Tokyo, which hit its peak late last year with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's controversial visit to the Yasukuni Shrine, which honors a handful of Class A war criminals. As the first Korean foreign minister to visit the House of Sharing, Minister Yoon said that his visit was meant to show the Korean government's strong determination to protest against Japan's ongoing denial of its historical wrongdoings. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
The U.S. state of Georgia has taken a meaningful step toward calling the body of water between Korea and Japan the EC. The Georgia state senator unanimously passed a resolution Tuesday in which it refers to the water by the Korean name, the EC, not the Japanese name, which is the Sea of Japan. The non-binding resolution was put forward by Republican State Senator David Schaffer. This comes as the U.S. state of Virginia awaits its lower house's decision on whether to require public school textbooks in Virginia to call the water both the EC and the Sea of Japan. Korea argues the name Sea of Japan reflects Japan's imperialistic past and that at the very least, both names should be used. And back here in the nation, it's been 2 days since South Korea made its proposal to hold reunions next month for families separated since the Korean War. But Seoul is still awaiting a direct answer from North Korea. The Inter-Korean hotline has been closed for the day, and South Korea's Unification Ministry says there are no plans to open the hotline during the Lunar New Year holiday. The ministry sent a message to the North this morning, urging it to reply as soon as possible if it is sincere about resuming the reunions. On Monday, Seoul offered to reopen the long-suspended event from February 17th to the 22nd and to hold working-level talks on Wednesday, that is today, to go over the details. The visiting U.S. envoy in charge of North Korea policy, Glenn Davies, had talks with the South Korean counterpart, Cho Tae-yong, this Wednesday. The two agreed that there will be no denuclearization talks with Pyongyang until the communist state demonstrates sincerity through action. ARIRANG News' Ojin Ju has the details.
Will the long-stalled six-party denuclearization talks resume anytime soon? Glenn Davies, the U.S. envoy on North Korea, says not unless the North changes its attitude and policy direction.
They know what it is they agreed to do back in September of 2005. They know what the United Nations Security Council has decided about their nuclear and missile activities. And so that's what we're looking for, is change to come from North Korea.
In the 2005 agreement reached during the fourth round of the six-party talks, North Korea promised to scrap its nuclear program in return for energy and other aid. South Korea's chief nuclear negotiator Cho Tae-yong stressed on Wednesday that the two countries will continue to work towards putting the six-party dialogue on solid ground so that the talks can produce a fundamental solution to the North Korean nuclear issue.
One is that we'll have to make sure that North Korean leadership will change its strategic calculations and finds that possessing nuclear weapons is not actually in his strategic interests.
On North Korea's recent demand to call off joint military drills between Seoul and Washington, Cho and Davies made it clear they will go on no matter what.
There is a reason why for the last 3 generations, 60 years, there has been, in general, peace and security on the Korean Peninsula, and that is because of the strength and solidarity of our two nations. And on the military side, that relates directly to our ability to be able to respond to any contingencies.
Cho, in a separate meeting with reporters, also emphasized the importance of Beijing's role in persuading the North to give up its nuclear program and vowed to closely cooperate with the U.S. and China to get the six-party talks back on track. Oh Jin-ju, ARIRANG News.
Touch base with journalists, experts, and analysts who are taking the pulse of Asia's heartbeat.
South Korea's defense minister.
In a lively half hour, join ARIRANG's Yoo Ji-hye for the day's top stories, current affairs, business, technology trends, plus global weather forecasts and more. ARIRANG News. Every weeknight, live on ARIRANG TV.
The massive data leak that affected millions of credit card holders earlier this month is set to go under a parliamentary probe that aims to uncover the reasons behind the breach. This as financial regulators plan to audit all of the nation's credit card firms for signs of trouble. Kim Young-gil reports.
The National Assembly will launch an investigation into the massive data leak that struck 3 card firms and affected millions of cardholders earlier this month. At a joint press briefing on Tuesday, the floor leaders of the ruling Saenuri's main opposition Democratic Party announced they had agreed to investigate the leak and draw up countermeasures. The investigation will aim to uncover the reasons for the leak at the 3 credit card firms, KB국민, 농협, and Lotte. Specifically, it will target the firm's system for securing data and sharing information with their affiliates. The investigation will be handled by the Parliamentary Policy Committee and will begin in February. Separate hearings on legislation against data theft will be conducted by other standing committees. The list of the countermeasures could include improvements to data management systems and legislation against the recurrence of similar incidents. Korea's financial regulators are currently auditing the 3 credit card firms in question and will start auditing 6 others as a follow-up measure beginning in February. This will be the first time the financial watchdog has audited all of the nation's credit card firms. Prosecutors announced earlier this month that the personal and financial data of 20 million credit card holders and tens of millions of bank customers had been leaked, prompting fears that the information could be used in scams, as well as concerns about the size and scope of data collection in Korea. Kim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
In the latest sign, the export-driven Korean economy is gaining momentum. The country's industrial output expanded at its fastest pace in more than 4 years last month. The nation also posted a record current account surplus of $70 billion for 2013. Still, the finance minister cautioned against having an overabundance of optimism. ARIRANG's Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Despite concerns about emerging markets and the possible fallout from the U.S. Federal Reserve's expected decision on another cut in its stimulus, Korean policymakers say the fundamentals of the Korean economy appear strong enough to weather the impact. Statistics Korea data showed Wednesday that the nation's industrial output, which includes production in the mining, manufacturing, gas, and electricity industries, grew 3.4% in December from a month earlier. That is the fastest pace in over 4 years. In a separate report, the Bank of Korea said that the nation's current account surplus reached a record $70.7 billion last year, up nearly 50% from the previous record of $48 billion posted in 2012. For December, Korea marked a surplus for the 23rd straight month, with the amount standing at nearly $6.5 billion. The central bank attributed the record surplus to strong exports coupled with stable global commodities prices that kept import prices under control. Economists expect the domestic economy to keep up with its pace of recovery this year, as domestic demand is also forecast to pick up.
This year, the global economy is projected to gain more momentum compared to last year, so Korea's exports will fare well. Facilities investment and consumption will also improve.
With this optimism, Korea's Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok said that market instability in emerging markets would have a limited impact on the Korean economy, but he cautioned against complacency given the rapidly changing overseas conditions. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
And thanks to the Park Geun-hye administration's national goal of putting the spotlight on cultural enrichment, people can now enjoy cultural activities at least once a month for next to nothing, or in some cases, completely free of charge. Our cultural correspondent Park Ji-won reports.
Every last Wednesday of the month is now a day of culture, as designated by the Korean government. On this day, people can get free or discounted admissions to concerts and events at public and private cultural institutions, including national theaters, museums, and galleries. On the first Culture Day, some 800 institutions offered discounts or free admissions to arts and culture events. The idea of designating a monthly Culture Day was first proposed by the Presidential Committee on Cultural Enrichment last October.
Although life can be tough, we hope that at least once a month, people can escape from their daily routines and enjoy cultural activities, nurturing their inner lives and enhancing their quality of life.
Culture Minister Yoo Jin-young says the designation could make culture more accessible to a wider range of people.
Koreans have up to this point led lives focused on work. The designation of Culture Day was made to send a message that now is the time to change our perceptions and lead a new life centering on family and leisure, which are also important values.
From discounted tickets at movie theater chains to free admission to royal palaces, there is a variety of benefits offered on this day. To find out more, you can visit culture.go.kr. The government says more cultural institutions will be joining the initiative to expand the variety of free and discounted events for future Culture Days every last Wednesday of the month. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Over in the U.S., political gridlock kept President Barack Obama from checking off items on his agenda in 2013. But the president says things will be different this year. Our Kim Ji-yeon has more on what he said during his State of the Union address.
U.S. President Barack Obama says 2014 will be a year of action, and he's prepared to use his executive power and act without Congress to get things done. In his State of the Union address Tuesday, President Obama focused on issues related to the economy, namely income inequality and job creation. To support the country's lower and middle classes, the president says he will work toward raising the minimum wage for future federal workers by 39% to $10.10 an hour, up from the current $7.25. Obama said higher wages would increase productivity and stabilize the workforce.
What I offer tonight is a set of concrete, practical proposals to speed up growth, strengthen the middle class, and build new ladders of opportunity into the middle class. Some require congressional action, and I am eager to work with all of you. But America does not stand still, and neither will I.
The minimum wage has remained unchanged for 7 years, and according to a fact sheet released by the White House, that means a family of 4 relying entirely on earnings of a full-time minimum wage worker would raise their children in poverty. But President Obama's critics say a wage increase would mean higher costs for businesses and eventually lead to job cuts. The U.S. president also addressed issues related to immigration reform and climate change. He said the U.S. needs to become more energy independent by doing things such as alternating oil imports with cleaner natural gas. On the diplomatic front, he mentioned the pullout of U.S. troops from Afghanistan and the Iranian nuclear issue, but not North Korea. Obama's speech comes ahead of congressional midterm elections this November and at a time when the polls suggest growing disapproval with how he's handled the economy. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Iran wants to use banks in Korea, Japan, and Switzerland to transfer international trade money back into the country. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Tuesday that Iran's petrodollar transfers will be executed in accordance with the nuclear deal Iran reached in November. He also said the country's central bank will cooperate with the specified foreign banks to transfer released assets back to Iran. 6 major powers agreed to lift the sanctions by giving Iran access to $4.2 billion in revenues blocked from overseas. In exchange, Tehran is to scale back its nuclear program. London is the most expensive city in the world to live in. This according to Expatistan, a website that calculates the cost of living in cities around the globe. 3 cities in Switzerland made it into the top 10, along with New York, Singapore, and Paris. The Korean capital of Seoul ranked 37th out of over 1,600 cities surveyed and was the 4th most costly in Asia. The results were based on the prices of nearly 5,200 items ranging from fast food to accommodations. Let's get the check on the weather with our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. And Bo-kyung, with tomorrow being the first day of the Lunar New Year holiday, many have begun to head home. Will the weather cooperate?
Good evening, Ji-hye. Well, it looks like our holiday travelers will have to deal with some rain tomorrow. Clouds have begun to move in throughout the country, and those in Jeollanam-do province and Jeju will be the first to see showers later tonight. Currently, the nation is under the influence of a low pressure trough from the West Sea, which is why we're seeing heavy clouds across the map. Well, nationwide showers are forecast from tomorrow morning through the afternoon, so those of you heading home or planning trips should keep in mind that the rain may exacerbate traffic on the roads. Tomorrow, sprinkles will begin in the central regions and gradually spread throughout the country. Total precipitation will only be about 5 millimeters, so it won't be much. Other than that, keep in mind that another round of showers is on its way over the weekend. Taking a look at tomorrow's readings, Seoul starts off the day at 3 degrees with a high of 7. Meanwhile, Gwangju and Busan hit 10 and 14 degrees respectively. As for other regions, Jeju and Dokdo peak in the low teens, while Mount Kumgang makes it to 2 degrees. Well, happy Lunar New Year to you all, and let's take a look at the international weather.
And that's our broadcast on this Wednesday evening. I'm Yoo Ji-hye in Seoul. Thanks for watching.